Hey guys, so today I'm going to look at a really budget-friendly all-tube amplifier. This is the Bugera G5 Infinium. So now this is a 5-watt tube amplifier that you can buy brand new for about $250. This one I actually found on the used market. I got it for less than $200. And I've seen a lot of used ones going in that price range. Now, these days there are a lot of affordable low wattage tube heads, but this one's really cool, not just because of the low price, but because of all of the features it has. It has an effects loop, a speaker emulated output, even a line-in jack, and a power attenuator. For me, it has all of the features I think you would want for a really great recording amplifier, and at the basis of it all, some really nice tones. Now, the Bugera amps kind of got off to a rough start. The first versions of the amplifiers had some quality control issues. There were some problems with them overheating, certain models, not all of them, but some of them. But this is the G5 Infinium amplifier, and by the time they got to the Infinium series of amplifiers, they'd pretty much worked out all the bugs. Okay, now I'll give you some tone examples in a second here, but one thing you're probably thinking right off the bat, you're probably saying, Max, 5 watts, what am I going to do with that? That's not loud enough to play a show with. Well, I took this amplifier to a rehearsal I did recently with a band I play in, and this band is an industrial metal band. It's extremely loud, some would argue too loud, but the amplifier worked great. It really had no problem as far as the overall volume keeping up with the other instruments in the band. And like I said, this is a rehearsal, and if you're familiar, if you play in live bands, you probably know that often the rehearsals are actually louder than the actual shows. So I think if you took this to a show, of course you're going to be probably mic'd up through the PA. It would have no trouble at all being used in a live situation. Okay, but let's go over the features and take a closer look at the amp. Okay, so here's the front panel of the amplifier. Now I want to mention again here, I bought this amplifier on the used market, so you can see it's got some rips in the Tolex and stuff. So obviously this is not a brand new off-the-shelf unit. Now if we look at the controls here, it's pretty straightforward. It's basically a 2-channel amp. We've got a level control for the reverb right here. It's a built-in reverb. Sounds really nice, although it can get really heavy, but you back it off to maybe like 3 o'clock or something like that, and it sounds really nice. Now the next section here is basically the EQ section, and this is a shared EQ between the clean and the overdrive. Okay, so over here we've got the morph knob. Now this is actually kind of similar to the Blackstar amplifiers that have the IFS control, where this is going to change kind of just the overall tone of the amplifier. If you want to have a sound that's a little bit more like a British sound, maybe a little bit darker sounding, a little bit more focused in the mid-range, you want to put that all the way to this side. At least that's the extreme. And then if you want something that's a little bit more open sounding, maybe a little bit brighter in some ways, a little bit more American sounding, you put it all the way on this side. And of course, anywhere in the middle here, anywhere in there, it really sounds nice. So it's just a subtle way to adjust the overall tone of the amp. Now, of course, we've got the standard treble, middle, bass controls right here. These are not really aggressive EQ controls. It'll help shape the overall tone of the amp, but you're not going to get a really extreme difference with really any of these controls. But that's okay, because this is an amp where pretty much any tone you can set on this is going to sound good. Now, as we move over here, we've got the overdrive section, volume and gain, and then the clean section, which has a volume and then a separate tone control. And of course we have the channel switch button right in the middle there. So obviously this is pretty straightforward, volume and gain for the overdrive. And the tone, again, for the clean section, the tone control just gives you a little bit more control over, how bright or dark sounding you want that clean tone to be. And then we've got, of course, the input jack down in the end. Okay, now this is the back of the amplifier, and this really highlights some of the really great features of this amplifier, because obviously there are a lot of lower budget, tube amplifiers, low wattage heads and so forth, but a lot of them don't have a lot in the way of, effects loop and a foot switch and an emulated out, all those extra features that you generally get on a more expensive amp. A lot of them don't have it. This amp pretty much has all of that stuff. So we've got a line input over here. So if you want to run something like an MP3 player or maybe a feed from another amplifier, you can run that in here. Here we've got the effects loop, and you've got a little pad adjustment. If you want to kill the overall level a little bit of the effects loop, you can hit that button there, send and return. Here we've got a jack for an external foot switch, and here, this is a really great feature, we've got an emulated output, and you can run headphones into this, or you can run this straight into a recording interface. And what's really cool is you've got a selection here for a 1x12 or a 4x12 emulated cabinet. Really nice feature there. Now here, this is the power output section. Of course, this main one goes to the speaker here. This is a kind of a basic power attenuator, so you can run it at the full 5 watts, which is actually surprisingly loud on this amplifier. You can run it at 1 watt or even 0.1 watts. So you get a really nice variety in there. So you can run it at 5 watts if you're going to use it for a rehearsal or something like that, or if you're going to do some bedroom practicing or even recording, you can run it down to 1 watt or the 0.1. And this right here, this is a feature of the Infinium Bugera amplifiers, tube life monitoring. This will just let you know if you're having any problems with the tubes, or in this case, tube in the amplifier. Okay, so those are the specs, but let's go ahead and plug this in and listen to how it sounds. Now, I'm going to use a variety of guitars, and I'm also going to use a combination of the emulated output, and I'm also going to mic it with a Shure SM57. I'm playing through a Carvin Legacy 4x12. Let's check it out. Alright guys, so what do you think? Like I said, brand new, this amplifier costs $250. It's 5 watts with a power attenuator. You can run it down to 1 watt or even 0.1 watts. I really want to stress something about the emulated output on this amplifier. It sounds amazing. It sounded so good that when I listened back to the recordings, I actually had to look back at the diagram that I wrote out as far as how I was recording the amplifier, because just from listening to it, I couldn't tell which one was the mic and which one was the emulated output. It's really that accurate. With that emulated output, you can get a variety of tones. You can mix the emulated output with a microphone. Or if you're doing bedroom recording where you don't want to make a lot of noise, the emulated output on its own is great. Alright guys, so what do you think? How many of you have tried out the Bugera amps? Does anybody else out there have one of these G5 amplifiers? I'd love to hear what you think about it. Thanks for watching guys. As always, I'll put some links in the video description below where you can find this stuff. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Talk to you soon.